Final update. My boyfriend's new tattoo makes me feel like a pedophile. I wasn't going to share an update, but after all the love and support I received, I felt compelled to provide some closure. Thank you to everyone who offered advice. I didn't respond to everyone, but I read almost every message. I stopped checking my private messages as many were graphic and negative, but I appreciated the few that were positive and helpful. Now, on to the update. It's been a whirlwind week since our argument. My boyfriend spent 2 nights at his sister's place, and during that time, I decided to send him links to my Reddit posts instead of writing a letter. I felt everything I needed to say was in those threads, and it might help him to see others' opinions. His sister read through them too, which sparked a massive argument between them, revealing some shocking truths. When he returned home, he broke down completely. We spent the night talking, and he opened up about using drugs and drinking more to cope with his grief. He shared that he feels responsible for his brother's death. While I was pushing for custody, he was hesitant, and now he believes his brother might still be alive if we had acted sooner. This guilt has led to feelings of resentment towards me, which he knows isn't fair but has been hard for him to process. I always knew he was struggling with his brother's death, but I didn't realize how deeply it affected him until he told me. Unfortunately, some of you were right. He regrets the tattoo. Discovering that I wasn't happy with it sent him into a panic. The thought of regretting it only added to his guilt. He hates the tattoo and tries to avoid looking at it. He apologized repeatedly for how he reacted and for not considering how it affected me. I also apologized for my comment that hurt him. Initially, he was taken aback, but after reading my post, he understood my intent and forgave me. He also apologized for accusing me of not caring about his brother. We discussed the argument he had with his sister. I had thought he went alone to get the tattoo, but it turns out she was with him and convinced him to get a portrait on his chest. He originally wanted a drawing of his brother's favorite stuffed animal. During their argument, it came out that she wanted him to get a drastic tattoo to create a rift between us. She felt I was tearing their family apart by pushing for custody and didn't want him dating me anymore. While I don't condone her actions, I understand that mental illness runs in their family. We suspect she may have bipolar disorder, but she refuses to seek help. My boyfriend clarified to our friends that he didn't share the tattoo story with them. It was his sister who lied. He promised to correct the narrative with any family members she mentions it to. We both apologize for what we said in anger, and we're committed to working through this together. In the short term, we're reaching out to a grief counselor and exploring ways to make things less awkward in our intimate life. Long term, we plan to consult a tattoo artist about options for removing or transforming the tattoo. He's hesitant about removing it completely and is considering getting more tattoos to make it less noticeable, which I support. As for his sister, he's contemplating whether to cut her out of his life. I believe he's lost enough family, but I'll respect whatever decision he makes. That about wraps everything up. Thank you again to everyone for your advice and support. It truly helped me navigate this difficult situation. I sincerely hope I won't need to post here again. My husband just confessed to lying to me for 2 years. In 2023, I was diagnosed with stage 3 kidney cancer. After a major surgery to remove the tumor and my kidney, my husband took a leave of absence from work to help me through my recovery. During that time, he spent a lot of money on medical aids to keep me comfortable at home, like a special shower chair, a rolling table so I wouldn't have to leave my recliner, and nice heating pads. A few months later, we took in an 18-year-old girl from our church who had left home due to an abusive situation. I had been her youth leader and was worried she might end up in a dangerous situation, so we offered her our spare bedroom rent-free while she figured things out. During her 3 months with us, small things began to go missing. Some items I had lent her and others that just vanished. Eventually, we arranged for her to move in with an older sister in another state. We helped her pack and get on the plane, but she left behind many things she claimed she didn't want or need. As I began clearing out her room, hoping to find the missing items, I discovered the fancy heating pad my husband had bought me during my recovery. It was tucked away in the bottom of a box of her things that we were planning to discard. I was so relieved it hadn't disappeared. Fast forward to today. I'm pregnant with our 4th child, and my back has been hurting, so I pulled out that heating pad and have been using it regularly. I mentioned to my husband how grateful I was that he had bought it for me, and how much it helped. He grew quiet and then confessed he had been lying for 2 years. He told me we never found the original heating pad. He felt terrible that I was upset about it, so he bought a new one, opened it, and placed it in the box, knowing I would find it. When he revealed this, I braced myself for something worse. But no, he just wanted me to think it was the original. He said he felt relieved now that he didn't have to hide it anymore. In that moment, I felt so grateful to have such a caring husband.
Can't wait until Thursday. My wife is going to be shocked. My wife and I have been together for 17 wonderful years. We're still head over heels for each other. She's not just my partner. She's my best friend and confidant. About 2 years ago, she started experiencing joint aches and some swelling in her hands and wrists. After visiting the doctor, we learned she had rheumatoid arthritis. We were hopeful as she began treatment. Fast forward to a month ago, when our unpredictable Texas weather took a toll on her. After a night of storms, she woke up to find her hands swollen, her fingers looking huge. Despite being warned, she had slept in her wedding ring. We rushed to the doctor's office, where they had to cut it off. Our rings were special, custom-made in Ireland with Gaelic inscriptions. They couldn't be repaired, and she was absolutely heartbroken. I assured her we'd figure it out, but I could see how much it affected her. So, I went into detective mode. I searched online for hours, only to find out the original jeweler had closed his shop years ago. But then, I found his daughter on Facebook. I reached out, and after some waiting, she replied. Sadly, her father had passed away just 6 months prior. I expressed my condolences and shared our story. Weeks later, I received a message from her again. She had gone to her father's designs and thought she found the original drawings of our rings. I confirmed they were indeed ours. She told me her brother had taken over the business and would recreate our wedding bands in her original size and 2 larger ones for future swelling, all at no charge. I was overwhelmed with gratitude. She explained that it wouldn't be fair for me to keep my old ring while my wife had to have a new one. They wanted us to enjoy our new wedding bands together. Our new rings will arrive on Thursday, and I'm trying to think of a romantic way to present them. She has no idea any of this is happening. I rarely keep secrets from her, but I wanted to surprise her without the risk of disappointment. It's tough not to spill the beans, especially since we share everything. Our friends even joke that we're like characters from a show because of how close we are. I thought about taking her to our favorite restaurant, where I proposed to her years ago. She always washes her hands before ordering, so I could recreate that special moment by dropping the new ring in her wine glass while she's away. I don't think of myself as amazing. She is my world. She brought 2 wonderful sons into our family, and I'm grateful to have raised them. She supported me while I pursued my 2 doctorates. She is my hero, and I wake up every day wanting to earn her love all over again. This is just one small way I can bring her joy, which is everything to me. If a man can't be sappy about his wife, then what's the point? In short, my wife had to have her rings cut off due to swelling from arthritis. I found the original jeweler's daughter, who recreated our rings without me knowing. Now I'm seeking advice on how to give her the new wedding bands. Update 2. I'm unhappy with how my boyfriend treats me, but he won't listen to me for long enough for me to get my point across. Firstly, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. Your support meant the world to me. Through your words, I realized I was in an emotionally unhealthy relationship. It wasn't communication tips I needed. It was the courage to leave. The past month has been a whirlwind, but I wanted to share my journey. After a tense morning, I confronted him about his behavior and mood swings. I prepared for a big argument, but it didn't unfold as I expected. He initially denied any wrongdoing, but for once, I stood my ground. To my surprise, he became upset. He apologized and claimed he didn't realize how his actions affected me, even though I had brought it up many times. He revealed he had been thinking for months that my struggles were somehow his fault. It felt like a contradiction, and I was left confused. Then, something unexpected happened. He cried. It was the first time I had ever seen him shed tears. He shared that he had been texting a work friend about our relationship. She told him he was ruining things with me and that everyone at work thought he was emotionally distant. Hearing that confirmed what I had felt all along. He opened up about his inability to connect with others, even his family. I told him that if he didn't seek help, he might end up very lonely. In that moment, I felt empowered. Eventually, we broke up. Part of me considered trying to make it work, but looking back, I can't believe I ever thought that. He kept wavering, unsure if breaking up was the right choice, but deep down I knew it was. Afterward, friends reached out to share their concerns about him. I also discovered troubling things about his past, including his ex, which made me realize I needed to move on. On the day we broke up, he packed his bags and left, telling me to stay with a friend. I later found out that friend was his ex's brother, and he had been living there for a month. I'm moving into a new place soon, and while he's still paying rent, I haven't seen him since. The past few months have been tough. I felt drained and low, but I'm slowly finding my way back to myself. I'm determined not to let anyone make me feel that way again. If you're in a relationship that makes you feel miserable, please take my advice and leave. It's hard, but you will feel so much better. Thank you again for your support. Eta for kicking a pregnant woman out of her seat. This happened just a few hours ago, and I'm still trying to process it because I really dislike conflict. I was on a long travel day, about 5 hours, and had booked my train ticket in advance to secure a reserved seat. When I boarded the train, I found a woman sitting in my seat. I approached her politely, showed her my ticket, and asked if she could move. She checked her ticket and admitted she must have sat in the wrong seat, then looked down. I reminded her that it was my seat and asked if I could please sit there. That's when her partner, who was sitting across from her, started speaking to me in what felt like an aggressive tone. He suggested I find another seat, but the train was packed and there were no other options. I explained that I had booked that seat and there were no available seats in the carriage. He raised his voice, saying someone else was in their seats and that his partner was pregnant. I understood that, but I also have a heart condition, which makes standing for long periods difficult. I asked him not to speak to me aggressively and mentioned I would file a complaint. He began swearing at me, and I asked him to stop. Eventually, the woman got up and let me sit down, but he continued to berate me, saying he hoped I felt good about myself. I just stopped engaging because it felt pointless. One of the men seated nearby offered for him and his partner to sit in the seats opposite me. After they moved, he laughed at me and pointed in my face. When the ticket inspector came around, she asked them to move to their assigned seats and checked in on me because another passenger had made a complaint on my behalf. Now I'm left wondering if I was the one in the wrong. Should I have just left him alone since she was pregnant? Did I escalate the situation in any way? I genuinely appreciate everyone who is engaged with my post. It's helped me reflect on how my anxiety and overthinking can cloud my judgment. I initially thought I had escalated things, but hearing others affirm that standing my ground was okay has been reassuring. I realize I still have some work to do in standing up for myself and not being such a people pleaser. Thank you for your support during this incredibly stressful situation.
Ayata for not giving the dollhouse I built to my niece, but to my wife as a gift? I'm a 28-year-old man, and I recently created a replica of a house that's special to my wife, who is also 28. It's about 2 feet tall and not overly complicated to build, but my wife has mentioned a few times that she thought it would be great for her little trinkets. She has this wonderful habit of collecting them, and I love that about her. I didn't tell her I was making it, but I cleverly involved her in the process by having her help with some TikToks to get the colors just right. She had no idea what I was up to. When I showed a picture to my brother, he thought it was cool but didn't quite get the purpose. He then showed it to my niece, Ava, who's 13. She recognized it and said she wanted one too. My brother asked if I would give it to her for her birthday. I explained that it was meant for my wife, but I offered to make one with Ava instead. I thought it would be a great way to teach her some basic woodworking skills, which aren't really taught in schools anymore. My brother suggested I could just make a second one for my wife and give the first one to Ava, since her birthday is coming up. I stood my ground, saying this was specifically for my wife. He seemed to accept that, but then he came back with, "Isn't it a little weird to make a dollhouse for an adult woman?" I tried to clarify that it's not a dollhouse, just a decorative shelf. He argued that made it worse, claiming Ava would actually play with it. I think he must have complained to our mom, because she called me, saying it was stupid to give my wife a dollhouse. I tried to explain, but she just kept insisting it was a silly idea. This weekend, while visiting their house, Ava kept bringing up the house, saying things like, "I've always wanted one just like it." She kept asking why my wife needed a dollhouse. I told my brother that he was encouraging his daughter to be manipulative, and I really didn't like it, so I decided to leave. He accused me of teasing Ava, saying I was being a bad uncle. Being a good uncle matters to me, and I do feel for Ava, because she's a fan too. I admit I might have a blind spot here since I don't have kids, and maybe I shouldn't have shared the picture with my brother in the first place. Am I really the bad guy for not just giving it to her? Yes, it was easy to make, and I could create another one quickly. But this was a special gift for my wife, and I wanted it to stay that way.
AITA for telling a social worker the real reason my sister wants a foster kid? This is a throwaway account. Well, my sister doesn't use Reddit. We have mutual friends who do. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I have a sister who is 36. For the sake of this story, I'll call her Jane. Jane is married to Bob, and they have two wonderful kids, a boy and a girl. They're great kids, and I love them dearly. For about 2 years, I lived with my sister, and it was a really difficult time that affected our relationship. She saw me as free labor and babysitting help. Even when I managed to get a part-time job, she demanded I hand over nearly half my pay or find somewhere else to live. It was a tough situation, and I moved out as soon as I could. Since then, we've had little contact outside of family gatherings. After I moved out, Jane started complaining about how she had no help with the kids and never got a break. I babysit sometimes, but I've made it clear that just because I'm off work doesn't mean I want to spend my days with my niece and nephew. Then she began talking about wanting to foster a child, specifically a teenager. When I pressed her for more details, I was shocked to learn her reasoning. She wanted to adopt a teenager so they could help take care of her kids. Her logic was that a 16 or 17-year-old, especially one who had been in the system for a while, would be grateful for a home and wouldn't complain. She even mentioned that they could share a room with her son or sleep in the garage, helping with chores, cooking, and babysitting, so she and Bob could have some alone time. I was horrified and told her it was a terrible idea. She didn't listen and went ahead with it anyway. About a month ago, a social worker showed up at my apartment to ask me questions about my sister, as she had listed me as a character reference. I felt it was important to be honest, so I explained why my sister really wanted to foster a child and how she treated me during my time living with her. The social worker thanked me, and shortly after, my sister called me in tears, saying she wouldn't be considered for any adoptions or fosters. The social worker told her they felt her home wasn't a good fit. When she asked if I had said anything, I told her the truth. She exploded on me, hung up, and we haven't spoken since. Some family members are on her side, believing that foster kids would be happy just to have a roof over their heads and would gladly do all the housework. So am I the bad guy here? Partner 31M went back to sleep after I called an ambulance for myself, 30F. Last night, I experienced sudden pain in my shoulder blade that radiated to my neck, chest, and down my left arm. My fingers were tingling, and I had never felt anything like it before. I told my partner about the pain, and he tried to massage my arm and shoulder, but it didn't help. When we went to bed, the pain persisted. He told me to call an ambulance if it got worse, and then he fell asleep. Just 5 minutes later, the pain intensified, and I was terrified I might be having a heart attack. Alone in the living room, I waited for the ambulance for about 45 minutes, trying to wake him to let him know what was happening and to check on our 4-month-old baby. Despite my efforts, he didn't wake up. When I finally managed to rouse him, he asked if I was okay. I told him I had called for an ambulance and needed him to feed our baby if he woke up. He nodded, but then went right back to sleep. I felt so alone, waiting in pain and worrying about how I would care for our baby if I ended up in the hospital. After an hour and a half, I decided to cancel the ambulance. If it were a heart attack, I thought, I would have been in worse shape by then. I returned to the bedroom, checked on our baby, and saw he was hungry. I made him a bottle and fed him while my partner lay sprawled in bed, snoring. I was furious at his indifference. What if I had been having a heart attack? I felt abandoned and questioned whether I wanted to stay in this relationship. I understand he's tired from working 6 days a week and is on antidepressants, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being alone in that moment. I went to an urgent care clinic today, and thankfully it wasn't a heart attack. They believe it might be a pinched nerve or soft tissue inflammation. I've been referred to a physiotherapist. Afterward, I talked to my partner about what happened. He didn't remember me calling for the ambulance, but recalled when I said I had canceled it. He explained that he's a deep sleeper and can't help it. He thought I should have shown more urgency if I was truly concerned. He also mentioned that I should have explicitly told him what I needed during that time. When I asked how he would feel if he were in my situation, he said he wouldn't know because he's never experienced anything like it. I expressed that he lacked empathy, and he responded that my feelings were different from his perspective. In the end, he felt like no matter what he did, it wasn't good enough, and that I expected him to read my mind. It was a tough conversation, and I'm left wondering how we can bridge this gap in understanding.
My brother's widowed fiancé's dead husband is not dead. The situation is so bizarre, I hardly know where to begin. For as long as I can remember, my brother has been the golden boy, while I felt like the family screw-up. I came along later, and by then, my parents were busy with their careers. My brother was too old to hang out with me. About 2 years ago, Golden Boy introduced us to his girlfriend, Sarah. She's beautiful, tall, and carries an air of tragedy about her. Exactly my brother's type. Sarah told us she was previously married, but that her husband suddenly passed away from a rare heart condition when he was only in his late 20s. After that, she left her home state, cut ties with her family and friends, and reinvented herself across the country. From the start, I felt uneasy about her. It was an instinct I couldn't quite put into words, but it didn't matter. My parents adored her. They included her in family vacations and birthday dinners, and soon my mom was saying things like, "I think she's the one for your brother." Sarah has no social media presence. Her last name is quite unusual, and over the past couple of years, I've occasionally Googled her. I found some recent work-related things, but nothing from her past or about her husband. She becomes emotional if you ask about him, and my brother quickly steps in to change the subject. They got engaged a few months ago, so now every conversation revolves around wedding planning. Sarah has very few friends, none from her past life, which is why I'm part of the bridal party alongside some of their mutual friends. A few weeks ago, while we were out shopping for bridesmaid dresses, I went to Venmo her for my dress. That's when I had a thought. How far back do her finances go? I started digging through her Venmo transactions. Most were between her and my brother or for hair and nails. But then I stumbled upon a payment from a guy that looked like it was for living expenses. When I Googled him, I found his Instagram. What I discovered was shocking. He had a wedding photo from 2017, and in that photo, he was the groom, and Sarah was the bride. And he's very much alive. He posted just 3 days ago, and he's remarried with kids. Once I found her ex's account, I uncovered her siblings, her old maiden name, and her entire previous life. Now I'm at a crossroads. Part of me wonders if their relationship ended badly. Which is why she claims he's dead. Another part thinks maybe she's hiding something more serious, like being in witness protection. Do I tell my brother? Do I confront her directly and ask, hey, what's going on? I've saved all the evidence, but I'm torn about whether to keep it to myself or share it with someone.